Hello, everybody, and thank you all for coming. I would also like to thank the Shalom Club for giving me this opportunity to speak about our mother's book. First, I would like to stress there's a difference between our mother's testimony and our mother's book. The testimony is what Mom's recorded back in 1996 when she was 80 years old. During that time, the U.S. Holocaust Museum has just opened, and the Steven Spielberg Foundation was established as a result of the great success of the movie Schindler's List. And they were collecting testimony of Holocaust survivors. However, our mother was deaf since World War II, and she could not hear, nor did she speak English. However, she learned how to read lips, and she could talk to anybody who looked straight at her in the four languages that she knew before the Holocaust: Yiddish, German, Hungarian, and Romanian. Many people talking to her did not realize she was deaf, and those who did and talked to her for the very first time, they were totally amazed. As a matter of fact, in the book, on page 177, is the story of just such a person. But first, let me talk about her testimony. And the purpose of this briefing was to show how this testimony became a book with a message and available on Amazon. Her testimony is available at the U.S. Holocaust Museum. It's free for anybody to access. You all have the link, and feel free to access it. And first, I would like to play a short interview of Mom's.
September. Ika, de belbate manen om de misterik und Rusland modale ausgewählt.
I don't know if you understood any of it. However, for those who do not speak English, we have provided the U.S. Holocaust Museum with a transcript in Yiddish. We provided all with the transcript in English. It's all for you to see. And it is an exact copy of what exists in Mom's book. It's about 25 pages, and in Mom's book, it starts on page 25, and it goes all the way to page 67. We also provided the Holocaust Museum with a supplementary material, which consists of a timeline, which they found very helpful, and that's on page 8 to 12 of Mom's book. If you will notice, the interview was conducted in 1996, and it was donated to the museum in January 2021, and we last updated it on November 2023 after Mom's book became available on Amazon to make sure that the Amazon copy and the museum copy match. So for those who are just interested in mom's testimony, you do not need to get the book. It is available and is free for anyone to see. So however, you noticed that there was a 25-year difference between when mom produced her testimony and when it became available on the U.S. Holocaust Museum. It took me 25 years to get mom's book sent to the museum. What happened those 25 years? Well, immediately after we recorded her testimony, our father got very ill. And unfortunately, 8 months later, he passed away. And then life became busy and complicated, and the 3 tapes were forgotten. But being a son of concentration camp survivors, the Holocaust has always been there with me, as far back as I can remember. All my friends, most of my friends were Holocaust survivors. Our parents' friends, were Holocaust survivors. Most of my friends were children of Holocaust survivors. So I was just living in that environment. And of course, as soon as I became old enough, I was aware of what the Holocaust was. And I read every book, I saw every movie, every show, every documentary that come across my way. And without intending, I became a Holocaust researcher. And I was aware of the special situations Holocaust children are involved with. But until 1998, when I discovered the book by Dina Vordi called Memorial Candles, Children of Holocaust, or Children of the Holocaust, which is available for anyone to get on Amazon, and I highly recommend it. This book opened my mind and systematized all my knowledge about the Holocaust, the Holocaust children of the Holocaust survivors. And they called us memorial candles because we were named after people who died in the Holocaust. In each family, there was also always a designated memorial candle, which is accidentally chosen by the parents. And I realized that in our family, I was the designated memorial candle. And this book actually turns out it was a source of the title for my autobiography, The Autobiography of a Designated Memorial Candle. Uh, 10 years passed by, and I got involved in publishing the book of my youngest brother, mother-in-law, Mrs. Lola Lieber. We in our family were big on Seders and on Passovers, and we always got the whole family together, often at a resort. And Lola always joined us. She was the mother of my youngest brother's wife. And she used to tell us all her stories of her Holocaust survival. It was a different story than anything I've heard about before. She never went to Auschwitz. She watched the Nazi invasion of Krakow in 1939. Her parents were in Munkac, and she and her soon-to-be husband ran away. For a while, they were in the Bochnia ghetto. They ran away from there, and they stayed one step ahead of the Nazis from 1939 to 1945 when they were liberated by the Russians in Budapest. It is a whodunit. It is an unbelievable story, and I fell in love with the story, and I believe it will make a bestseller and a great movie. So I convinced her children that we have a great story on our hands, and we should just publish it, and for sure it will be a bestseller and a hit movie. Well, it didn't turn out that way. So, but we all got our resources together and we published the book first in 2010. That book is out of print. So in order to get further copies, I decided to publish it again in 2023 under my name as a publisher. And so it's available for anyone who wants to read it. So I was actually cured of making money out of Holocaust. This book cured me of making money out of Holocaust memoirs. And so life continued on. And in June 2020, we have in the middle of the pandemic, with my plans canceled, I decided to finally start working on Mom's recording. I like to joke that Mom had to send around a plague on the whole world for me to keep my word for her to get the recordings to the Holocaust Museum. So the book is available on Amazon for anybody who wants it. And again, I want to stress, we are not making any money from the sales of this book. It will all be donated to charity. And here is the book. The book is called Oral Holocaust Testimony of Deborah Babchuk-Sachs-Jacobowitz. Why this title? Well, I did not choose it. It was chosen by the U.S. Holocaust Museum rep, who said that that her testimony will be used by researchers who use keyword searches, and therefore we should use every name that she was known by. Deborah's her first name. Babchu is a diminutive of little grandmother in Ukrainian, which had a lot of Ukrainian peasants in the village where she grew up. But they knew her even as a baby, as a little grandmother. Sachs was maiden name, and Jacobowitz is her married name. The quote in front of the book, "You should know, my child, a generation must descend from me. You shall not forget what I tell you, that my life's works, klug, will not be in vain. A generation must descend from me." This is my grandmother's parting words at Auschwitz from my mother. I want to stress the word klug in Yiddish means very hard work, hard labor, but with all translations, a word like that takes different meanings in different contexts. So we choose to translate it as life's work. But like with all examples in the book, if it was not a clear definition what it was, we used the original word as well. Now on the back, you will see the pictures of Generation 3 in the year 2023. These children are my mother's great-grandchildren and my grandmother's great-great-grandchildren in the year 2023. Now, if you look at the if you look at in the page 170, it says Generation 3 in the year 2021. And you will see there are only 16 grandchildren, yet here there are 17, and I'll explain how we came to that conclusion next. The other common theme about many of concentration camp survivors' memoir is that their children and grandchildren are all a victory over Hitler. It's a common theme in many Holocaust memoirs, and it's a common theme in my mother's memoir. And now to the testimony itself. The testimony itself, if you read it, you will realize that it is a witness testimony. It is specific and it's facts only. People, places, dates, but of course, feelings are inevitable in such situations. The book starts, the testimony starts on September 15, 1940, and it finishes on July 5th, 1946. For the first 4 years, from 1940 to 1944, when Mom was deported, Mom, that part of Transylvania changed countries from Romania before 1940 and Hungary after 1940. In some ways, that was fortuitous because the Hungarian Jews did not get deported till the spring of 1944, while the Polish Jews and all other Jews were deported. One of the things you will notice in this section is the concentration trying to get proof Hungarian citizenship. And if you were not able, you were shipped across the river Tisa towards then Czechoslovakia and was occupied by the Germans. And most of those people were almost immediately killed. However, in the spring of 1944, the Germans took over Hungary and the Eichmann period started, and the Hungarian Jews were also deported to Auschwitz. My mother's story is very, very similar to every Hungarian Jew Holocaust survivor. They were first ordered out of their homes, then they were placed in the ghetto, and then they were taken from there to Auschwitz. My mother arrived in Auschwitz on May 21st, 1944, and I would like to read for you now a passage which you will find on page 34 of her arrival in Auschwitz. They ordered that older people and mothers with children and those who are not well to go left and those who can work to go right. My mother, who was still near me and not yet 56 years old, I stayed with her. We did not want to part from each other. When we tried to go right, they did not let my mother go. When we tried left, they did not let me go. In the end, with the 500 people, they let me go with my mother left, so I decided to go with her, and they did not stop me. Dr. Mengele, the one who had a stick in his hand pointed left or right, saw me and called a soldier who tore me from my mother's arms and threw me to the queue going right. I cried in German, "This is my mother," he said in German. "There is no mother here." The queue going right was full, there was no more place. So Mengele told the soldier to ask who wants to go with their parents. A young girl from Satmar, not a tall one, not a strong one, responded, and they were very pleased that I, a stronger person, who was more fit for work, took her place. This child still stands before me, a younger child than I, and they put her in that place, in the queue that went to their death. Then comes reading again of our that I read at the very beginning, the logo of our family for our mother's separation from her mother. However, I would like to read another, just to the bottom of that page, another paragraph and tell you the significance. A relative of mine from Borsha, also a young girl, when asked to undress, refused to undress. And they shouted, "Undress, you dirty Jew." She shouted back to the Germans, "I am dirty, you are dirty. You are a cursed nation. How can you ask me, the daughter of a Talmudist, to undress here with all these men around?" And they shot the child on the spot. Suri Klein was her name. More mom crying and blowing her nose on the tape. I like to stress the importance of this paragraph. Suppose that somebody is trying to figure out, research what happened to the Klein family from Borsha. Here is an eyewitness testimony of what happened to one of their daughters in Auschwitz. She died a heroic death. And the book is full of such names, dates, locations. Our mother's memory was unbelievable. After Auschwitz, she was in Auschwitz about 6 weeks. She was sent to a work camp in Gelsenkirchen, and from there she was sent to another work camp in Sommerda after Gelsenkirchen became bombed out by the Allies. And finally, on April 2nd, 1944, they started the Death March. The Death March is a very common theme in Holocaust memoirs. A lot of people died during the Death March for various causes. So I'd like to read one sample of Mom's testimony on page 52. Mom was almost 2 weeks without food, without water, running and running, trying to escape. And she was just about out of strength. And now I'm reading. A German woman, a young woman, if she is alive, may she long live. She saw from an upper floor that these Germans are not willing to give us a drink of water and came out to tell us that we should sit in this place. It was like a ramp without trees, but not sandy. Some grass was growing. We should wait there because she is coming down to serve coffee. When she sent down her maid, apparently everyone rushed her, shoving their way to get a drink of coffee and a little marmalade on a patch of margarine. And everyone was shoving to get some. I no longer had strength. I lay there to straighten my broken bones, and she spotted me from the upper floor that everyone is running and I alone just lay there. I no longer had strength. She approached me with a little pitcher of coffee, a pretty porcelain pitcher, and asked me in German, "Why are you not eating?" I tell her, "It's all the same. We are kaput, finished. I no longer care for food." "No," she said, "you must live. You must live." And proceeds to force feed me, forcefully pouring the coffee with a little pitcher. As my dry bones were moistened, I began to feel that I can attempt to stand on my feet, and she gave me a little bit of margarine with jam, but this I could no longer take. from eating this meat was good to satiate me, but it required me to drink water. For the 13 days we were on the road without a drink of water, without a bit of coffee, without anything. So as you can see, she also stresses that even among the perpetrators, there were some who still had a soul remaining. So she was liberated in Buchenwald about 2 days after the US Army got there. Then she was transferred to Russian sector. The book, the testimony described how she got home. And the book ends on July 5th, 1946, when Mom married Dad. Now, how Mom's witness testimony became a book? Well, as I said, in June 2020, I started translating Mom's book. I thought we had a treasure there, so I informed my brothers about that. And my middle brother, he started translating also. And when we compared the translations, we realized that we had two different translations. As it turns out, that's normal in translation because we both interpreted what Mother had to say. So we decided that instead of using the translation, we will use Mom's words exactly as she spoke in Yiddish. And if the sentence did not make sense or to make it more readable, we decided to add our words in parentheses so the people reading the translation would know which are Mom's words and which are our words. And we worked on that for about 6 months. And it was December 2020, and there were still two items not clear. The word Wangmacher and the place where Mom was liberated, that sounded like Rheinholzheim. It's a typical German name. Rhine is either the river Rhine, Holz means wood, and Heim means home. So, but we could not find such a place. And we always wondered how come Mom, who remembered everything so well, would not remember the place where she was liberated. But I've had enough. I just wanted to get the book finished and send it to our children and friends, whoever was interested. But my brother did not want to give up. He said, well, why don't we add before and after? And I agreed as long as it was short. And it just so happens that during the pandemic, I talked to a lot of people a lot more often than normal. It just happened I was talking to my friend Werner, who I knew for many, many years and with whom I used to work together. And he asked me, what are you doing? So I said, I just finished Mom's translation from Yiddish to English. And I asked, what are you doing? He says, I'm finishing a bathroom. So he asked me to send him the translation, and I said, why not? I sent it to him. And 2 weeks later, he calls me and he says, this is an unbelievable memoir. Can I translate it in German and share it with my friends and family? And I said, sure, why not? Also, at the same time, I contacted the Yad Vashem U.S. Holocaust Museum, Yad Vashem, and the Gelsenkirchen City Archive. And it just turns out that the Gelsenkirchen City Archive the archivist was a German woman with a PhD in sociology, concentrating on Holocaust studies. She even published a book about it. And the head of the Jewish community was a woman whose mother was in the same camp with my mother and also from Sighet. It turns out they probably didn't know each other. But anyway, and then Werner calls me with a suggestion that Wangmacher should be Zwangsmacher, which means enforcer, and makes sense in the location where it was used. And the Reinholdsheim is correct, but it is spelled Reinholdsheim, and it is exactly where it was supposed to be, about 1/3 of the way to Chemnitz from Buchenwald. And this homophone just totally floored me. I started to think, wow, this book has a karma of its own, and that I'm out of control. As I mentioned earlier, even the name of the book was not chosen by me or by my brothers. My brother was not ready to finish, so while waiting for him, he was just retiring from IBM after a long career. And I shared my translation with family and friends, and they all suggested, they all wanted a book they could hold in their hand, and they all wanted to contribute to the book. Even the daughter of a friend of mine who lived in Wiesbaden said was taking exactly at the time, talking about karma, history of the World War II in her high school class. And she said, can she share it with her class? I said, sure. So she shared it. And she said she would like to also contribute to the memoir. So between December 2020 and June 2021, this 45 testimony became a 150-page book. Finally, my brother retired, and now we could concentrate on the book, but he wanted more and more information before and after, and I wanted less information, so it would not take away that this book is really Mom's Holocaust memoir. Well, we compromised. First, we put in the before everything we knew about Mom. And for those who read that part will realize what a successful woman our mother was at the age of 24. She was the manager of a dairy factory. But after 1946, it became a long, long time, and we compromised that we concentrate on our life in Romania and do not say too much about our life in the US. So for those who will read the book, we'll also have a Holocaust memoir and also understand what it is to be a life of a Jew in communist Romania. Now I would like to read an excerpt from page 134, talking about our arrival in the US. Our arrival in the US was memorable in many ways. We even made the papers because it publicized Nayana services. And you will see our picture in the next page. The one there with a lot of hair is me. And my middle brother and my youngest brother, who's 10 years younger. And I would just like to read a short paragraph. Soon after we landed in America, Hayes turned us over to Nayana, a local Jewish charity whose role was to mainstream Jewish refugees into America and provide help with housing, learning English, and finding them jobs. There was considerable pressure from Nayana to get off their roles by finding jobs and leave the hotel and move to permanent housing. We found a 2-bedroom apartment in Borough Park at the corner of 12th Avenue and 51st Street, where we ended up moving to. Neil and Gedalia were immediately enrolled in a yeshiva, but Meyer was required to find a job, which he started on March 1st. Our parents also found a job, Mom in a sweater factory, and then head as a shamus, a sexton, and the Vizhnitz synagogue in Borough Park. So that's just an example of the part that there was in the US. Well, like I said, finally, November 2021, we reached an agreement, and I asked all the people, friends and family, how many books they wanted to, and it came to close to 300 books. So I decided to print 300 books. Soon after I distributed them, a lot of them asked me, why didn't you tell me that we could have contributed? We would love to contribute. Also, one person wanted to put the book in a library, actually in the Florida Holocaust Museum library, but the book was not in standard form. So I decided to publish a second edition, which came out on April 15, 2024, which was in a standard format, like most books. And I printed 200 books. That book so far ended up in at least 5 public libraries, both in Germany and the US and in Romania. I sent a copy of the book to my friends in Romania, and the granddaughter of a friend of mine who was just studying in the university for her master's in European history and politics. She asked me if it's okay with us to allow her to translate the book and to use it for her dissertation. Talking about mom's book having a karma. So I said, of course. She did the translation. It was very good, however, it was not professional. But a teacher from my old high school volunteered to do the editing. So the Romanian translation, according to most reports, was great. And the only payment that person wanted was 10 copies of the book, so she could put it in my old high school's library. And that's when we ended up with a back cover decision. In 2023, there were 17 great-grandchildren, generation 3, but the book only had 16 in 2021. So after consultations with my brothers and my sister-in-law, we decided that we leave the book as this, how it was originally published, but in the back of the book, we should use the number of generation 3 children at the time of publishing. And that's why on the book that came out on Amazon on June 23, 2023, the public edition has 17. And I decided to follow that agreement every time I make a presentation of Bam's book. And now the Mom's book karma continues. What are the consequences? First, it may turn me into an accidental author. After I finished edition 2, I started writing Mom's book's karma, but I was not happy with it at all. So I decided to leave it, but my desire to write continued, and I was thinking, what can I write about? And that's when I decided to write my autobiography, which started as 1 volume, published on May 26, 2023, but ended up in 3 volumes. 1 year later, I only had about 4 books of Mom's book edition to left. And people wanted more. Actually, somebody asked for 6 books. So I decided rather than print another 100 or 200 books, spending $1,000, $2,000, I decided to publish it on Amazon using my new learning skills as publishing books on Amazon. So that's when I decided to have Mom's book on Amazon. That's how it came about. Mom's book Karma, which eventually I finished, is actually published in volume 2 of my autobiography, which is called Holocaust Lessons. So, as I said, one volume becomes 3 of the. Then I added the autobiography of a friend, child Holocaust survivor of Romanian Holocaust, and so I have a total of 6 books published. Only 3, me being the actual authors, and the other ones being contributor in some ways. And this is my author's page for all of you, which I hope all of you will be looking at. And finally, what is the message? The message of this book, with the German in the middle, and people writing in German, and which we translate into English, is how children of victims and perpetrators can cope with their family history. And cope with their family history. And for that, I will read my final excerpt from the book, which is at the very end, written by a German man who I never met, who wrote me this. I have presented the concentration camp and the Arbeiterwerk as an example of a concentration camp in a functioning city. In the middle of it, the torture of these people would be seen on the streets, and everyone played along. The Arbeiterwerk, for you all not in the book, was a factory right close to the main train station in Frankfurt, where I lived for quite a while. And it was a concentration camp right in the middle of the city. Back to the book. Finally, more and more people are speaking out, sharing their suffering in a very personal way. Many thanks to Jacobowitz family for their story, which does not end with the end of the war. It is an important book for everyone who are working on an honest reappraisal, and it should be a motivation for those of their families who did not suffer directly from the repressions of the Nazi era to tell their story. We want to know how society worked. It takes courage to do this, but all people got almost everything at the time. Anything else would not be honest. If that succeeds, the present generation will be able to make a clear step forward. This generation just wants to find their place in a new international world. That is why the book by Meyer, Rachmil, and Gedalia is so great. And that is the message of our mother's book. And I will finish my presentation with Generation 3 in March 2025. Now there are 19 children with 2 on the way. So the victory over Hitler continues. Thank you very much. And now I will take questions.